The Witcher 4, not featuring Geralt in a leading role, which is an overall talking point when CDPR confirmed more Witcher games anyway. But now, speaking to Fall Damage, we have Geralt voice actor Doug Cockle saying that he can't say much about the game overall, but Geralt will be part of the game, we just don't know how much, and the game won't focus on Geralt. It's not about him this time, we don't know who it is about. I'm excited to find out. I want to know. I've not seen any script yet. I mean, I couldn't tell you if I did. This is the thing. This is the thing. So I could be lying through my teeth, but I'm not. Or am I? Man is very cryptic.
Wow, a man of many conflicted opinions there.
But the overall thing here, and this comes after CDPR did put an official image out for the game, which showed like a lynx head, like one of the various pendants, a lynx face or model or whatever, in the snow, making people think that Ciri would be the protagonist of the next game because she wears a School of the Cat pendant in The Witcher 3. But overall, this idea of Geralt's role in the future of the Witcher series, CDPR have said that Geralt's story is done, and I couldn't find the excerpt from a couple of years ago when they announced all the different projects. I swear they said back then that Geralt's story was done, but he would still appear or could still appear because he is in Thronebreaker, and so like you can do side content with Geralt, Metal Gear Solid 2 with Snake style, and I quite like the idea of that, of Geralt's role continues.
He's
but
too big a brand icon to pass away completely. It makes sense if you're going to go the legacy route, have Geralt in and around the action. If it is Ciri, if it is a brand new Witcher, then yeah, no, it makes sense as a mentor figure. Like with Mafia 3, when they brought back Vito from Mafia 2, who is clearly one of the most, he's not one of the most iconic video game. I don't know what I'm talking about, but he was a supporting role within that game, and it makes sense to do that. I like that passing of the torch element, especially if they do it in a way where the legacy isn't eclipsing the new thing you're trying to bring in. And obviously, it remains to be seen. It could be Ciri. It could be a character that we've already grown accustomed to in the previous games. I'm kind of hoping for someone new, but I don't know. You guys seem to be bigger Witcher heads than me.
Witcher folk.
What do you think? Do you want it to be Ciri, or do you want it to be someone brand new?
I can go either way. Like the Witcher lore obviously is so primarily focused on Geralt, but there are so many stories set in that time period. I really like Thronebreaker. I think the lore itself is just really cool. Like the way magic works, the way the enemies spawn or created or whatever. There's a lot of options you can do there. The thing with Ciri is that in The Witcher 3, when you do play Ciri, she has a whole new power set and a whole new set of moves that Geralt never gets or gets anything close to, even in the DLC. So I kind of always thought they were building something else. Like, and it's a weird mechanic. Like you hold a button, you extend a radius, and then you attack everything in that radius. But there's maybe more you can do with that, like in terms of doing combo moves that build a meter, then you expend it, taking out more dudes or whatever it is. I just hope that the Ciri stuff, even if it's not Ciri herself, was a tease in speeding the combat up or refreshing it or whatever. I like The Witcher 3's combat. I forget the name of the dude that they motion captured, but I like all that balletic swordplay stuff that they pulled from. I thought that was really cool, and it made fights look really choreographed, even though they weren't, and I get that was a criticism. But still, I hope they can find a way of meshing that with like a faster hack and slash kind of vibe. And I hope to God they don't do a Souls game. I don't want another over-shoulder camera.
Why
and a
would
Souls
you throw
thing.
that into the world?
Because everyone wants it except
You're gonna
me.
manifest it, and it's gonna be boring.
I don't want it.
No, I don't want it.
The Witcher Souls. Josh, mate, what do you think?
If I speak, I am in big
Oh,
trouble.
no, with the wider populace, they'll all look for it.
Geralt being a non-playable character in a more supporting role, I like it. I will miss playing as that Mad Shagger because him in
He's the
Witcher
original Mad
3,
Shagger.
he is. In Witcher 3,
There's gonna be a new
especially.
Mad Shagger on the
That's
block.
true. Yeah, who's to say Ciri can also be a Mad Shagger?
True.
But yeah, I think after 3 games with Geralt across various different states of amnesia and finding himself and completing his arc, I like that. He'll still be around because he is, if it is Ciri, so central to her story as well. But occupy a supporting role, and I think that makes sense now because Geralt, unlike some of the RPG characters that you play as, has always been way more defined. You still had so much choice over his actions and his kind of personality and how the state of the world shakes out. But you know, he draws that line well of giving the player enough control over the story while still being identifiable. There's a reason people love him in a way that they don't love the default version of Commander Shepard or someone, right? And I like that maybe if he steps into this more supporting role, that could maybe be solidified in an interesting way and have your decisions as this new character, or Ciri, maybe reflect how he changes throughout the game or something like that.
Because they've announced so many things. Like we've got the remake of The Witcher 1, so you're still going to get your Geralt box ticked anyway, and that's the game that like there's so much more you can do with that anyway. There were various storylines taken from The Witcher 1 that are then in the Netflix show that retroactively would then be kind of cool to see the game version of that done in with better graphics and tech and everything. And then you have the whole other trilogy that they're doing as well. So that there's a lot of Witcher stuff about to happen. But I do wonder, like, one, I wonder if they bring him back Vesemir style and he's just the person who's teaching you, which is obviously the case at the start of The Witcher 3, but more for Ciri, even though you are playing as Geralt. And two, I wonder whether it's a create a character. I wonder whether you can pick your school. I know picking your school means that you wouldn't be under Geralt. But still, I wonder whether they open that way up and maybe they take their shot at doing a Bethesda-style open-ended thing.
Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 has got to be instructive to so many people working in that fantasy space at the minute. Obviously, Elden Ring as well, you create your own person now with a fairly robust character creation tool. That would make sense to me. I'd always be here more for in that Witcher space, a more guided narrative character. Obviously, it's an RPG, but I would like the idea of like a fully robust character that CD Projekt Red will have worked on and constructed to fit in. But again, I do like creating people. I do like creating. That's always a fun time.
I wonder as well. It's weird with CDPR because Cyberpunk is such a weird, like, kind of a dark cloud over them that the weather eventually cleared with them. But the last few years have been so back and forward. Obviously, the game's launch was historically disappointing, historically all over the place. Even though personally, I absolutely loved the thing, even at launch, at least playing on PS5. But things like Phantom Liberty and all the patches and all the fixes and the overhauls that have happened made that this like shining example of a phenomenal RPG. I wonder whether they take anything from that game's design overall in terms of the way that the open world is structured. It's similar to Witcher 3 anyway, like you go into question marks and things like that on the open world, or whether they just kind of revert back to like, this is what we would have done as a follow-up. Like, then I pray we're not going to get a first-person Witcher. That whole switch at the time when we realized Cyberpunk was going to be first-person was a controversial thing. And I assume that they just go back to third-person stuff and just kind of Cyberpunk is its own thing.
Yeah, I'd prefer that. I think it makes sense to keep them their own distinct brands of RPG and each with their own distinct gameplay systems. If you're going to have two big franchises like this, which are now both hugely successful, like you said, Cyberpunk's really clawed its reputation back with the release of Phantom Liberty and all of those patches, and that's kind of why I lean towards Ciri being the main character, because I know V has, a name and a backstory to a certain extent in Cyberpunk, but it's way more, like Ewan said, player driven. You can create a fully custom character. You can really get into the minutiae of who they are. Whereas The Witcher, I do think, excels in giving you a kind of framework and allowing you to explore that. I don't know how much backstory of Ciri is in the books that they could pull from, but to me, just going off what I know from her in The Witcher 3, I like the mystery that surrounds her. I like that she has, if she is the playable character, so many possibilities to alter and change who she is and who she could be, maybe in a way that's a little bit more malleable than what Geralt became, because when he started off with the amnesia, he kind of was more of a blank canvas in a game, from a game perspective. So maybe Ciri kind of manages to get back to that a little bit, but with a little bit more definition.
The thing that's weird is that, like, if you're doing, they've not said as far as I know, like timeline wise, like if this takes place after The Witcher 3, like both Geralt and Ciri have very Geralt more so than Ciri has a defined end. Like if you did all of Blood and Wine, then he's retired on a vineyard with whichever person you chose to pursue with a relationship. He's done. Like it's perfect. It's a really good ending. He can choose to go out and do bounty hunter style stuff, do his witchering, but he has a place to live. Like he has proper, like it's a perfect ending for that character. Ciri is more dependent on whatever your choices were across the whole story, whether she becomes a witcher or a ruler or goes back under the Empire again. Like it's interesting doing this because you've got to canonize one of them, and nearly every long form saga gets worse when they canonize choices.
There is one, because there's been post Witcher 3 comics that I feel lean into the Witcher, like Ciri becoming a Witcher ending.
Yes.
So I feel like that's probably already set in stone. I don't necessarily think it undermines the choices players previously made.
I don't think it undermines it. It's just, it is interesting though if they start going like visually in a game series, like it's not just spin-off comics. It's like this is the main canon for CD, because even CDPR's canon is different to the books anyway. So whatever. Like I'm just curious with that stuff. Like if you try and, because they've got the other trilogy, it's like meaningfully differentiate it and be like, this is a whole other story. Don't worry about it. It's just the tenets of Witcher. Witcher, but it's different.
Maybe that's an argument in favor of them introducing someone completely new.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the bigger question is like when it comes to CDPR, kind of like Bethesda, they have the sci-fi wing in Bethesda's case, Starfield now, and the fantasy wing, and Cyberpunk is being left for a bit, so it's going to be full systems go on Witcher. Do you think it's a mistake though, like not having Geralt? I mean, like Ciri will be cool, but like
I don't think so. I mean, he is obviously so recognizable. He's such the beating heart of that first trilogy. But like you said, we're getting the Witcher 1 remake anyway, which is, by the sounds of it, going to be incredibly substantial and do a lot of overhauling to that original experience. An experience that a lot of people just haven't played because it was PC bound and it was
it's awkward as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's probably got a way bigger player base now, but even The Witcher 2, like back in the day, that had its fandom, but it wasn't Witcher 3 levels. Witcher 3 was something completely different. It broke that entire franchise into the mainstream. So there's a lot of game there to reintroduce to those players who might not have been able to experience it. So I think it's not a mistake because Geralt's always going to be around in one form or another, whether that's an NPC or what have you. And these games are so based around player choice anyway that I think it makes sense to have a break, because I think in the current age when we've got the news of Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom or Wolverine coming back in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think there is a want for consequence and a certain degree of permanence, I think, rather than just circling back to what worked. Not saying those were necessarily, I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine last night again. Great.
But I think with all of this is that there are ways to pass the baton to the next person. I really love the way that the Creed movies did it, where you literally have Rocky training the next person.
The best legacy sequel ever made.
Yeah,
Creed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And it's like, that's the respectful way to do it. Like you can, I don't know if there's a term for it, the idea of like passing the baton down kind of thing.
Just passing the torch,
Yeah, passing the torch down, but like you literally see it. Like get the old guard back in, they pass it on, they sort of bless the role, whatever it is. It's more of a Hollywood thing. But the idea of having Geralt train the next person, so you get to have Geralt in the marketing and all that kind of stuff.
Almost in a way, I prefer it when there's less ceremony because it feels more organic. What made Creed work for me is that it was still, as much as it was Adonis' story, it was still like a Rocky's story as well, because he's dealing with the aftermath of like the stuff he's been through in Rocky 5 and obviously Rocky Balboa, and then he kind of has his own the medical diagnosis and he has to come back and finds a way to live on in a new way. So sorry, I love those movies. They're wonderful. I almost kind of like the idea that you do a new Witcher thing and they succeed on the strength. They don't try and oversell someone. That's why I think maybe the Star Wars sequels, as we get further away from them, feel, for me at least, Force Awakens feels a little bit more kind of labored in that approach. Like we've got the new cast, going to retread old ground and stuff. Almost just kind of want that classic storytelling dynamic of old, wizened, cool mentor and their slightly brash, cool, up-and-coming pupil. Like that's why I love For a Few Dollars More. It's why I love Men in Black. Give me more of that stuff, and just go with it. And I like that more than having the reverence for the franchise and going, look at how important everything was before. Yeah, just tell the story, use the characters, and make the dynamics work.
It's definitely in the conversation as well, like more so on the Sony first party side, but you've got it with Kratos training Atreus, you've got it with Drake teaching Cassie at the very end of Uncharted 4. The idea of like the next generation coming up, but not like fully getting rid of the people who came before. And we haven't really seen that too much in the third party space. But
no, it's true.
And also in lore, there's a whole thing about Geralt's going to take forever to age and whatever. So it's like he can just kind of still be around.
I think this is better set up than something like Gears of War 4, which had that sort of Force Awakens style issue of jumping into the future and having to establish a whole new generation of heroes. That's
totally the fifth party thing I couldn't think of before.
Yeah, true. I guess first party with Xbox, but in having to establish like a whole cast of characters and their relationships to the old cast of characters, where I think Witcher 3 played a blinder, because that's pretty much Ciri's story. Even when she's not involved, you are chasing after her. You are often in the aftermath of what she's doing, and you even get those gameplay sections where you directly play as her, and the ending is tied around her. So they've already kind of laid the groundwork quite nicely to not have to over-explain themselves with a sequel. Assume that people, to a degree, are familiar with this character and just go, yeah, here's how we're picking up. You're playing as her now. You've already kind of played as her previously anyway, and maybe we'll get a few Geralt segments in the game like we got a few Ciri segments in the last one. one just to give people a little bit of fan service and maybe a little bit of a treat here and there.
Yeah, there's definitely so much more they can do with it. I assume we're not going to see anything of this for a good another year or 2 years or something.
Yeah, that's my question. What do you think we see first, The Witcher 1 remake or something from this?
Probably that. I think Witcher 1 remake. Because in theory, it's easier to turn over because at least you have a framework.
Was the remake announced at the same time?
Yeah, they did a whole thing where it was like, there's a new trilogy, there's a Witcher 1 remake, there's this other Witcher game, and I think there's something else.
I would hope that they show the new thing first, because I feel like that way you get people excited with the new thing, and then you can also go, there's also this old thing that you can try that's been completely refreshed. So I think if you're introducing the franchise to a new generation of people, maybe people who just casually watch The Witcher on Netflix and never played The Witcher 3,
God help.
now have a new in with this franchise. That would be how I would do it. I think it's just because as much as I've never played the first Witcher game, I'd be very much down for a remake. I do just want to see new stuff. I'm so sick of this remake glut that we've had.
I think because
we're coming up on The Witcher 3's 10-year anniversary next year, so let's not think about that too hard.
no, let's not think about that too much.